Hi, I'm Nikki, and I have Saturn in my third house, and this is my story. So first I will tell you a little bit about my father. He was an interesting person. He always kind of emphasized the importance of how life is a learning experience. You know, life is a learning and a teaching experience, and I should try to learn as much as I can. But at the same time, for him, it was also the same. It was really similar in the sense that he's always got his head in either the television, the newspaper, or he was just in his own world a lot. He was lost in his mind a lot. And whenever I tried to talk to him about anything, such as sharing my opinions about certain things, it was just hard to rip him away from his own world. So he would respond with one-word responses to something that could have been explained a lot more, and he would not really talk about himself. I felt like I didn't really know him that well, that he was just he didn't disclose much about himself any more than something on the surface. So in a way, it was kind of easy to break his rules. He would have rules, but when I kind of broke them, it was really easy to get away with it. And sometimes I just kind of feel like, did he even care? And the other thing about him is that he was someone who prefers, I would consider, instant gratification, like music or food or sometimes drinking, to other responsibilities in life. So growing up like this, I found that, in school, it was really hard for me to speak up. I was never the student who would raise their hands in class, but I would get really good grades. But it was more of and I think I was pretty modest as well, so even though I got good grades, I would never really flaunt about it, and I would kind of get it quietly, shall I say. I remember that when I was in 7th grade, there was this school play, and for some reason I kind of really wanted to participate in it, and I wanted to be able to have one of the main roles because I knew that I could do it. I knew that I could take on the role, and I could act, but the teacher ended up giving me a role which had no lines, meaning that I was basically like a mime. It was that kind of a role. I guess I don't blame her because I rarely speak in class. How would she know that I was capable of that? But I just knew it, I knew that I could do it. But of course, who's to blame, right? So anyway, after high school, I wanted to pursue acting, so I wanted to go to acting school. But my dad wanted me to go to university and become a doctor and have a degree in medicine. So that's what I did. I went to medical school. But I couldn't tell if it was because I really didn't like medicine, or if it was because I was internally rebelling against him, but I dropped out after 2 years. So I didn't actually finish my degree. I don't know, maybe he was pissed off at me, but how am I supposed to know that he actually cared? Anyways, I just got a job, my first ever job when I was 20, as a staff at the call center. So I would just pick up the phone and take in some calls with customers all day. I was bored. So I quit that job and I moved to California, just to be in a different atmosphere. And I became a bartender at several bars. I would work at one place and then I would try another place and I would just bartend around there. It was fun for a while until I got bored. I don't know, now looking back, I felt like that was not the best decision to make. I have a problem with decision making, as you could probably tell. Then I met this man when I was 25. He worked as a literature professor in university, and I fell in love because he was so smart, and I just felt that I needed someone smart in my life, someone who was really good with decision making. Anyways, he was smart and he was very talkative, and you know, he shared a lot about himself to me, and I found that to be absolutely attractive. So yes, I was in this relationship with him and things were going well, but I know now that I look back on it, there were some mistakes that I made in the relationship at that time. Like, for example, I knew that he really wanted to get close and intimate and he was sharing a lot, but I didn't do the same. I knew it. I know it now that I didn't return that. In a sense that, you know, when I felt something, I couldn't say it to him because I thought that if I were to say it, it would just sound silly, or he would just come back with one word and I would just feel like stupid. Like the way that my father kind of made me feel. It's hard. It's hard when the people around you, they just keep thinking that you don't know what you know, that your ideas are just ridiculous. So at that point I thought, it's better if I just don't say anything. But I guess that just made us drift apart even more. When I was 28, something really strange happened. Is that my relatives, a couple of them, my aunts, my mom's sister, and some of my uncles, you know, my mom's brothers, and they were like trying to hook me up with a new guy or something. I think they just thought that, you know, I wasn't happy and the relationship just wasn't working out, so they were really trying to find someone for me. And I told them I didn't want this, but it was like I'm just speaking to a brick wall or something. I think they even like gossiped behind my back. Like people were saying stuff about my life and my relationship. And I tried to get in touch with my father, but I couldn't. Like, I tried to call him, but he wouldn't return my calls. I didn't know why, and I would be able to talk to my mother from time to time, but it was more of just that she was just saying that people were talking about you and things like that. And you know, I really needed some support at that point, but I didn't know how to reach out. I didn't know how I would say how much it was troubling for me and how much it was painful for me. And eventually everything just kind of fell apart and I lost that relationship. You know, he broke it off and that was that. He said that something was missing. A friend of mine at that point recommended I go to therapy because she had done it and she said that it worked for her. So I went to therapy and I wished I had gone sooner, because what I did in the therapy sessions were really looking into my own mind, and that was what I had feared the most in my life. Now that I come to think about it, you know, it was the fear of knowing how smart I was, because if I knew how intelligent I was, I could know the truth about a lot of the things about myself. And I did not want to know those things. I did not want to know that the issues that I had with my father. I did not want to know that I had made such terrible decisions with my career and my relationship. I don't want to know that all of that had come from my past, from my childhood. I don't want to know any of that. But I had to. And when I went through those therapy sessions, I started journaling a lot, and I somehow became much stronger. And the therapist recommended that I do some training with my mind, like meditation and yoga. And once I did that, I kind of got in touch with how I could make the best decisions for myself that was no longer going to be based on the need to prove that I could make it out in the world, but was just a decision based on knowing myself really well, knowing what motivates me. So that's when I decided to go back to school. So I went back to acting school, something that I had wanted to do since I was in high school, in 7th grade. I decided to really open up to my dad, so instead of just calling him, I actually went over to him, and then we had some talks and discussions about how I really felt about a lot of the things in my life. And it turns out that he didn't really shut me off like I thought that he would. He was actually listening to me, because I don't know, I think the way I spoke, you know, my communication style had changed after journaling a lot. I processed my thoughts better, and when I started to talk to him, it was like the words were coming out in the right way, in a natural flow, and he could feel the sincerity and the genuinity within what I say. So he listened, and it was really healing for me. I'm now 34 and I'm an acting teacher. I'm also an actor as well. I act in plays from time to time, and in a way I feel that this opportunity allows me to teach other people, you know, about what I've learned, but at the same time it allows me to have a bit of a double life. When you're acting, you have another life, and when you're in your real life, you have another life, and I kind of need a little bit of that. But I think the most important thing is that now I am more firm with my decision making, and I know how to make the right decisions for myself, because I trust that I can make the right decision for myself. So I guess the karmic cycle that I've been in for a large part of my life all started off with my insecurity about my own mental capabilities and my intelligence, because of the way that my dad kind of responded to my opinions and my ideas. And it's this insecurity that I had about the fact that I couldn't really let information flow within me as easily as other people can. So it made me feel stupid. So I overcompensated for this by, well, first of all, I rejected my education to try and get myself out there in the real world, but done in a way where I didn't make the right decisions with how to get myself out in the world, in my job, but also, and that caused me to not be able to genuinely and intimately interact with my environment. Also, I overcompensated by latching on to another person whom I thought was more scholarly, was more professor-like, wise and intelligent, to sort of replace my dad. But then again, I made the poor decisions of not really allowing myself to say what I felt for fear of sounding silly or having to feel the way that I felt when I did it to my dad when I was younger. All of this causes what I felt was a very chaotic time in my life, in my environment. You know how my relatives were just absolutely chaotic and everything was just out of control. And when I tried to make suggestions and give opinions about how to improve the situation, I still felt that they wouldn't understand me, or they would reject me, or I would sound silly. So I tried to keep my suggestions within the acceptable solutions, with acceptable solutions, and somehow that comes off as a bit dogmatic or stubborn, I suppose. And because of this fear, my speech, I suppose, was just coming off as unnatural, a bit rough or rugged, and misunderstood in a way by sounding like it's too dogmatic. Well, actually, I felt that it was genuine, but of course it's not, because it's coming from a fear of going to sound silly, so I had to censor my real opinions. So, you know, this just causes other people to not take in my opinions and suggestions even more, which then leads me back to feeling even more insecure about myself, and the loop goes on and on. You know, what I have learned about how to escape this cycle is that I really have to push through the limits of my mind, and the best way to do that is to push into myself and my own psyche, to take in honest information about myself, my deeper motivations for things. And when I know how my mind really works, it gives me great self-confidence in knowing that I am smart. Because one of the smartest things that a person can do is to analyze themselves, to understand their own inner workings. That's a very intelligent thing. When I understand my deeper motivations for things, it allows me to form the right kinds of solutions to problems, not one that just is, you know, it allows for creativity and not just practicality. But it's more than that, it's genuine and it's authentic. And this also applies to the decisions that I make within my life now. And I find that the best way to try new things and to experiment with new types of experiences is to really do it genuinely and authentically because of curiosity, not because of the fear that I wouldn't know enough. I've learned that the truth about myself will always win over some fantasy illusions about myself.